All right, how's it going, Marines? My name is Corporal Sills, and today we are going to be going over the TSP, otherwise known as the Thrift Savings Plan. We're going to be talking about why the TSP is important, what is the TSP, why I should be investing into the TSP, what does the TSP do for me, right? And we're also going to be talking about the different types of funds, the different types of 15 funds, because as of July 1st, 2020, the Thrift Savings Plan, they added new Lifecycle funds. We're going to be getting into those, and we're also going to be talking about a series of other things when it comes to logging into the TSP app and knowing how to navigate, and the most important things that you should be familiar with when logging onto the TSP Thrift Savings Plan, right? But first things first, I want to read something that I saw, and here it is. So I was on Reddit reading about TSP and how they were investing, this, that, and the other. So one guy said, this is 2018 January, one guy said, I dumped anywhere from 5% to 35%, had to take breaks here and there. By the end of 2017, I'm sitting at just under $150,000, 13 years of contribution. Sir, I'm a technical sergeant with just under 11 years time in service. I contributed 15% for the ranks 1 through 4, upped it up recently to 35%. I have $50K in there. So already that's a $100,000 difference. One guy replied, you should have more than that. After 11 years, are you in the Gfund? He responded, I was for about 9 years, unfortunately. I'm now diversified CS&I and have had great gains the last year and a half. So the first fund I want to talk about is obviously the Gfund. Basically what the Gfund is short-term U.S. Treasury security. Your money is extremely safe in the Gfund. So unfortunately, a lot of service members are put into the Gfund when they go to boot camp. And unfortunately, they go through maybe a first or second enlistment without really knowing that they're into the Gfund, and they just know that they have a TSP and they're making contributions. Sadly to say, your money isn't really gaining anything and is barely keeping up with inflation in the TSP. And if you're one of those Marines, after this video, you should gain access to your TSP account and switch over your contributions, because you're not setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up for failure. And that's really what it comes down to. Over a 10-year period, historically, the Gfund has earned 2.23%. Let's say you had $10,000 in the TSP sitting in the Gfund, right? And you let it sit there for 10 years. Your money will go from $10,000 to $12,467. And that's in the Gfund. Now, a lot of people like to speak bad on the Gfund, and the Gfund really isn't a bad investment. To sum the Gfund up, the Gfund is good if you are nearing retirement and you want to keep your money as safe as possible. But the Gfund can be very, very unbeneficial to you if you are in your 20s and you're still contributing to the Gfund. The F fund is the fixed index fund. The F fund is not as safe as U.S. Treasuries like we saw previously in the Gfund, right? The F fund on a 10-year average makes approximately 3.99%. Historically, statistically, 3.99%. So if you put your money into the F fund and let that sit for 10 years, you are going to have $14,700. So that's the F fund. Your money is extremely safe inside of the F fund. And what a lot of people do is when they're nearing retirement, they tend to diversify their money into the G and F fund, 50-50, 50-50. So that way they're not really losing as much when the stock market takes a huge dip. Because if you're in the CS&I funds and the stock market goes down, chances are you probably lost a couple $1,000, which in the long run is it's a tiny dent in your portfolio. So just keep that in mind. It's a long-term game. It's not a short-term game. If you want to do some short-term things, then the TSP probably isn't for you. We're gonna get into the C fund. The C fund is a common stock index fund, and the C fund is, it's like the brother or sister or twin of the S&P 500. Basically, the C fund is comprised of 500 different U.S. companies, right? These big U.S. companies like Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, all of those big companies. The C fund is for someone who can afford risk. You know what I'm saying? So if you're younger, if you're 20 and you can afford risk, the C fund is for you. There's a lot of volatility, and so what that basically means is it fluctuates up and down. It changes rapidly all the time, right? Zoomed in, magnified, the stock market is doing this, right? It's going up and down like a roller coaster because you're here, you're this close, you're zoomed in. But if you just take a step back and zoom out over time, yes, it's doing this, but what it's doing is doing this. So it's all about patience. In the C fund, over a short period of time, the returns can be quite unpredictable. In the C fund, over long periods of time, the returns can be quite predictable and quite frankly, very good for you. But first, like I said, you need to determine your risk tolerance. For a lot of us in this room, for a lot of you Marines that are watching this, you guys are young and you guys should start, personally, you guys should look into the C fund, look into the S fund. The C fund, historically, statistically, 10-year average makes approximately a 13% return. With that being said, let's say you have $10,000 and you let your money sit in the C fund without making any contributions to the C fund. Your money would have gone from $10,000 to $35,000, and you literally didn't do any work. Now, the next fund we're going to talk about is the S fund. The S fund stands for Small Cap Index Investment Funds. So basically what it is it mirrors the Dow Jones stock market, and it's comprised of smaller U.S. companies. Not like the C fund. The C fund was bigger, the S&P 500, 500 companies, but the S fund is composed of smaller, bigger U.S. companies. Not like your local donut store or mom and pop's bakery. I'm not talking about that. The S fund's validity is equivalent to the C fund's returns. So the C and S fund are kind of similar, but historically, statistically, on a 10-year average, let's say you have $10,000 sitting in the S fund, you made no contributions, $10,000, right? I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the S fund makes 13.8% 10-year average. If you let your money sit for 10 years in the S fund, it will have earned around the same as the C fund. So we're not really going to go into that. So the I fund is basically international stocks. That's what it stands for. The I fund is good for you if you think international stocks are going to outperform U.S. stocks like C and S. If you think the I fund is going to outperform the C and S fund, the I fund is for you. Historically, statistically, if you just had $10,000 in your savings plan, right? You didn't touch it, you never contributed to it, you just had $10,000 in there and let that sit for a 10-year period. It earns 5.85%, $17,656. So if the I fund is for you, the I fund is for you. Next, we're going to be getting into the Lifecycle funds. As of July 1st, 2020, TSP just put out new Lifecycle funds. Before, it was in 10-year increments, so 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050, 2060. Now it's 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040, and so on all the way up until 60. Now, basically what the Lifecycle fund is it's a portfolio that's managed for you. It's for someone who has little to no interest when it comes to managing and constantly checking their TSP account. It's kind of like you can put your money in there and forget, but you can do that with all the other funds as well. Over time, your money becomes more conservative as you near retirement, and the years are based on when you think you're going to retire. So if you plan on retiring in 2055, you're going to choose the Lifecycle 2055. So with that being said, as you start off at a younger age, your money is more aggressive. You know, your investments are extremely aggressive, but as you near retirement, your money becomes a little bit more conservative. So your money starts distributing into the G and F funds and I funds, and not so much the C and S funds. Now I'm gonna tell you why this can be good and why this can be bad. So let's say you're 20, and you decide to choose the 2060 Lifecycle fund. Now let's say the stock market decides to shoot up tomorrow. This can be good for me because, like I said, I chose Lifecycle 2060, so my money is going to be a little bit less conservative. It's going to be more aggressive, being that it's being distributed into the C, S, and I funds more so than the G and F funds, which are bonds, and they're a little bit more conservative. So the stock market decides to shoot up, right? I'm going to be making a hell of a lot more money, but let's change the perspective. If the stock market were to go down, me being in this Lifecycle fund, my money is going to drop down significantly. But because I have the G and F fund in my portfolio, some of my money is still maintaining its level. Let's say you're in your mid-50s and the stock market decides to go up. You're going to be making less. You want to know why? Because your money is now being redistributed from the C, S, and I funds into the G, F funds, the more conservative funds. That's where the money is safe. Lifecycle is for those individuals who are nearing retirement. Your money becomes more and more safe. All right, so now the next thing we're going to be talking about is contribution allocations and how to request an inter-fund transfer. If you decide to move your TSP savings to a new fund or whatever it may be, you'll need to request an inter-fund transfer. You're basically moving the money that's already in your account and redistributing it inside of your Thrift Savings Plan account. And to change how you invest for your future contributions, you'll need to change your contribution allocation. And we're going to be getting into that right here. So this is the Thrift Savings Plan page. Once you get your user ID and your password, you're going to sign in. But before you do that, it's going to be a two-step authorization. You're going to click your email and you're going to click submit. Then give it a few seconds. Your TSP code should appear in your email. And basically all you want to do is obviously copy and paste it or type it into the little thing, click submit. And then now you have access to your Thrift Savings Plan account. And if you don't know your username and password, you can put in a request and they will mail it to you. So this is what the home page looks like. So on the left-hand side, you're going to have contribution allocations and inter-fund transfers. First things first, we're going to click on contribution allocations. And basically what the contribution allocation is, the contribution allocation, it changes how you invest in your future contributions. So not what you currently have in your account. You're changing what you are investing in your future contributions. So previously I had 70% C fund, 15% S fund, and 15% I fund. And just recently I requested 80% C fund and 20% S fund. And I'm still waiting for that to smack my account. It should be hitting today, I believe. And see right here it says you requested that your future TSP contributions are going to change. Next thing we're going to talk about is inter-fund transfers. And basically all the inter-fund transfer is you're changing where you want your money to be redistributed in your account. So right now that's how much money I have currently in my account. And basically I'm telling TSP, hey, I want this money to be redistributed into these select funds. So previously, like I said, I had 70, 15, 15, but just recently I requested 80% C fund and 20% into the S fund. So that money that I have already invested in my account is going to be redistributed into those accounts. So I will no longer be having money in the I fund. So like you see here, you requested that your account balance be invested as follows. And sometimes a lot of people, they just like to go to inter-fund transfers just to redistribute everything evenly. So like I said, I have 70, 15, 15. But if you go on the left-hand side, it says I fund 14.32, S Fund 14.96, C Fund 70.72. But originally I requested 15.70. So a lot of people, they like to go in there and they like to just rebalance everything. That's what you can do. And TSP loans, it's nothing you have to worry about unless you're looking to get a TSP loan, which I don't recommend. Beneficiaries, if you pass away, basically you can go on there and you could put, where your money goes to, next of kin. Let's say if you have a child, that, trust fund, whatever. Recent transactions, I have none, and that basically sums up interfund transfers and contribution allocations. So now that we've gone over the different types of funds, contribution allocations, and interfund transfers, etc., now we're going to get into the meaty part, and that's BRS, Blended Retirement System, and essentially it's free money. But first, you need to know if you're in the Blended Retirement System. If you join the military after January 1st, 2018, you're in the Blended Retirement System. Also, if you were in before the year 2018 but opted into join the Blended Retirement System, you're in the Blended Retirement System. Under the Blended Retirement System, the military will match dollar for dollar all contributions that you make, only up to 5%. So figure out what your base pay is, and 5% of whatever that number is, and the military will match that. So let's say your base pay is a certain amount, and 5% of your base pay is $159. The military will match you $159. If you are in the BRS, Blended Retirement System, and you're not contributing at least 5% of your base pay, and you're leaving free money on the table. And sometimes, obviously, different Marines are in different situations. Don't stretch yourself too much. Sometimes you're in debt. Sometimes, you have certain responsibilities. So, but if you're not one of those Marines, you should be taking advantage of the 5% match. The better off your Marines are in their financial lives and personal lives, the better off they're going to be as a unit when they're working in a professional environment with you. It's important for service members and future service members to maximize their efforts when it comes to contributing to the TSP account during their first 4 years of their enlistment. By doing this, you setting yourselves up for success when it comes down to retirement. To sum everything up, let's just say you wanted to contribute $500 monthly. And let's say you don't do 20 years in the Marine Corps and you switch out and you get a federal job, right? That way you can continue to contribute to your thrift savings plan. Let's say you do that for 40 years. Realistically, you should be a TSP millionaire. Actually, you will be a TSP millionaire if you contribute to your TSP for 20 to 40 years. You can just put your money in there and forget about it, and eventually you will become a TSP millionaire.